Welcome to That's So Intimate,
a podcast where we explore living well through deep, curious conversations.
I'm Sarah, guide at Rad Intimacy, inviting you to remember your sacred self.
I'm Brian, a guide at Sadhana Yoga School, where we share wisdom for life.
Let's get intimate. Hello, Brian and I are back again, and today we're talking about an old-timey word from the 17th century that we found, and it really struck us. It's called velleity, and the definition is a wish or longing so faint it never moves toward action. It is like a wish, and it can just hover beneath the threshold of will.
I love this word. I'm so excited to discover this and bring it back into use because it seems to answer or describe what I see so many people experiencing, and myself included, which is kind of like a knowing that things can be different in our lives or that we want it to be different, but then we don't always act on it. Whether this be a desire to move to a new city or get a new job or get a new partner, or just like we know we want to make some changes in our life or do things different, or even run a marathon or learn a language, or anything that we want to do, but we don't want it enough that we take action. And I think about in the teacher trainings, we use the term transformation, you transform your life, and that does happen, but I like approaching it from this other angle of thinking about this word velleity, of our small desires that are there, but that we're not acting on for some reason. And that's what I find interesting. Why are we not acting on it? I guess I know in my life it's out of fear, afraid that that project won't work or that it will fail. So it's fear keeps me from acting on that desire. I might have a desire to do something, but then I don't do it out of fear, sometimes out of time or priority. It just hasn't, I feel like I have other priorities. So it just gets kind of boxed out by other things. And then sometimes, I guess it's related to fear, but sometimes some of the desires are so close to my heart that they're very tender, that if I was to open up that box, afraid it would get squished, and that would be too much to handle. It's better to kind of feel safer to have this idea or this dream and to just let it sit there in that little safe box of not really going for it. But yeah, if I were to really go for it and then it got squished, that would be harder or worse than letting it sit there as a little soft desire.
So I love that you're sharing this, because I think it's a potent thing that I've used with clients before, is to ask, what would you do if you weren't afraid? So if you can imagine a version of yourself that didn't have fear, then how would you act? What would you do with that?
Yeah.
And then if that's what's keeping you from the thing you're really longing for, then that's something that can be worked with, assuming that the person wants to work with it, right? But I think what's really interesting is that we're making the assumption that the thing we're thinking about doing is something that we're actually meant to do. So my question is the longing something that is like a deep knowing about our purpose? In which case, yeah, let's figure out what barriers are there and try to overcome them to play out our dharma and to, do what we're meant to do with this life. But then sometimes that longing is more like a dreaming or an escapism thing that it's not really meant necessarily to come into fruition. It's not really meant to be acted upon. It's like, so I guess with this word, it's interesting. It's like identifying the gap between longing and action. But to me, that's where it's like that messy middle. That's where it gets really interesting. Like, how do you really know that you want to take action? Do you want it enough? Does it keep coming back and calling to you? Does it feel like something that you're meant to be doing? Then that's a stronger thing than just I'm trying to escape, avoid, and dream about being living on the moon and being a different person. Like, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Big difference.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily resonate with calling it as an escape or an avoid, but I can see how you can use those words. I would say it's like more just like random distractions, or I would use the term like small side quests rather than your main quest. And if you take too many small side quests, then you box out your main quest, right? You can get distracted. So then, yeah, so why do we experience this? What's the value? I was initially sharing, like, I see it as like it's a challenge to overcome. We have these desires that are there, but they're not strong enough that we take action. So they're latent desires. And it's kind of like a little ache, this knowing that we want something, but we're not doing anything about it. But maybe that's really useful because then, yeah, as you're saying, I think it is true that we have so many desires, kind of latent desires, that we could not act on all of them. So maybe that's the natural kind of filter or funnel that allows the strong ones or the true ones to get through. But my sense is that in our world today, we don't need help. Like, we're not acting on too many of them, and that we're doing the opposite and we're not trying enough of them.
Mm.
And my thought would be that it's better to, listen to the quiet whispers inside of us and try them out. And like, that's how we get more clarity, is by trying them and taking action and then reevaluating. And maybe that desire will get stronger, or maybe it will fade after some action, right? It's not like all or nothing. It's like we start acting on more of these inner knowings, and then, get that feedback rather than just letting it sit latent entirely.
So what's interesting, though, is this word actually specifically highlights something that is a longing, a wish, a will that never fully incarnates into action.
Mm-hmm.
So if we actually take the action part out, the like, what would it be like to do it? It's interesting for our conversation to maybe sit in that messy middle of like first acknowledging the desire, the longing, the wish, because sometimes we even suppress that.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, acknowledge, right? And then how to do the work of unpacking all of the details of it. Like, is this something that's really aligned with my values? Is this something, given best case scenario, I would want to act on? And like, why am I not? And like, let's look at that. And like, let's look at any patterns related to desires and how that pattern has looked in my life so far. Let's say, like, what have I done that I'm really proud of, that really was aligned with my values, and how did that go, and why was that okay to do, but then this present thing doesn't feel okay to do? So it's really interesting work but so basically we would have to use a different word if this desire ever turned into action. Then it's called something else.
Yeah, so we can, like, something might be a velleity now because it has been unacted on.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we act on it, we nullify it as a velleity.
Mm.
So maybe we were mistaken in calling it a velleity. Yeah, that's an interesting observation. I think there's actually value, though, in acknowledging these quiet desires that we have that will never be acted upon, and, like, acknowledging that. And I think that could allow actually us to move forward with things because
Mm,
that kind of, like, little longing or knowing that we wanna act on something or we want something, but we're never gonna act on it. It's almost like a grieving
mm,
the loss
yeah,
of it, and that could actually free up some space, I think, to
pursue.
pursue what we are gonna act
Yeah,
on, right? Like,
right.
because, like, it's like and it's real, like, we all experience this, some things that we maybe wanted to do in our life but never will, and if we just let them linger in nebulousness and don't really we never act on it, but we never acknowledge that we're not gonna act on it, and we just kinda
Mm,
have it as a little bit of a side dream that's never there, a false future that's never gonna happen, that can keep us stuck and from acting doing other things because we may not choose to go fully in the direction that we are meant to go because that closes the door to this other dream that's never going to happen anyways. So we
mm.
may as well take that action and move forward, which for real closes the door in our mind. So I think there could be value in acknowledging that we have desires that are never going to be acted on and accept our choices. Like a lot of times we will make a choice and kind of I don't know, we're going all in, but we don't go all in on our mind. And that doubt or kind of half commitment causes us to not, yeah, go fully forward and be present with our life.
And so I guess the goal, when I think about it, like for me or the listeners or anybody I care about, would be that their low level, maybe even moderate level longings are velleities. They're things maybe you acknowledge, you fantasize about, you think about, but never act on. But that your higher level ones, the ones that hopefully are your actual dharma, your purpose, your action in this world are things you do really move toward. And I guess it's really interesting to figure out how to unpack what is really meant for you and how you can put that into action and like what is maybe I don't think you like this take on it, but in a way it's like it's a distraction. And so in that way it could be an escape from doing the main event thing.
Yeah, so it gets into the definitions of things. And so if we define velleity as something that we never will act on, I don't like the word as much anymore.
Yeah,
But I love this idea of having a word for the things that we haven't acted on yet. That
right. But there's
and
something
using that as a definition. And then from there going on to two categories, things we haven't acted on yet that we never will, and things that we haven't acted on yet that we may, and then things that we haven't acted on yet that we eventually will.
but
Um,
let's assume it's the version I said for a minute in that it's stuff that will never happen. It will never act on. There's really good information there though.
mhm.
Why is it that I had this longing for fill in the blank? Like, what does that say about me? And how, if at all, is it tied to the thing I really do want to act on, for example? And how maybe can I weave some of that understanding into action for another thing? So, anyway, it's a stepping stone. It could be a learning opportunity that's really important, actually.
Mhm.
So you like the word less and you want to explore what it would mean if it were just a yet to be acted upon longing.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, let's explore that.
and I mean, I guess I love both. I do love the idea of acknowledging that we have some longings that we will never act on, and kind of accepting that as part of the process. But then, yeah, so maybe I need a different word for the ones that we do end up acting on.
Mm.
Maybe they're false velleities. But that's where so much of our, I don't know, our autonomous being lies in, like, how do we know what to choose, which desires to act on and which to not? I see so many of us not acting on our internal desires and instead choosing actions that align with our society and how to fit in with our culture and our
Mhm.
community and our friend groups and things at work. And oh,
It's making me think like you're kind of going in a direction my brain was going, which is I wonder how much of velleities are actual shadow things that we have shame about wanting or longing for. It doesn't fit into the narrative of self, or we desire it, but we don't act on it because it would mean some sort of rejection or right. So that's shadow work has become a really interesting avenue in which to explore what it means. And basically Carl Jung would say, if you're not going to follow through with that thing or do that work, it will pop up in your what we basically he says what we do not make conscious emerges later as fate. So it shapes our choices even though we're not acting on it. It's within us. The desire is still within us. And so that's really interesting because regardless, and so in some ways, maybe we do act on it, but we were not necessarily conscious of that connection, right? We're not acting on, I don't know, moving to California, but maybe there is some underlying bits of it that we do act out on in some ways, or yeah.
so you're saying, like, an example of that might be we have a desire to have a different job, but we never pursue that, but we might kind of like sabotage our current job so that we
Hmm.
kind of like shift in that direction.
And it
So,
can create like maybe unhealthy patterns in relationships or like certain resentments. It's like this low level hum of quiet discontent, like I wasn't able to act out this longing. And then it creates maybe some negative effects, or I don't know.
I'm thinking about the idea that of what causes these in our life. Like, one of them certainly is I experience is fear, or self-protection, right? So taking action creates risk, risk of failure
For sure.
or judgment from others, disappointing ourselves or others. Like,
Shunned, being completely shunned
yeah,
could
so
be,
that
right?
that fear is kind of like external thing, let's say, that creates this internal inaction.
And then we might resent whatever external factors didn't allow us to do it, or we thought.
So then in that case, it's recognizing the velleity can point us to the fear that we have.
And it can point us to maybe what it is we are willing to act on. It might be a different version of the same thing in a way.
Yes. But then I'm thinking, like, okay, so we have a velleity that's actually velleity and we're never going to act on it. But exploring it can point us to this fear that we have of being, let's say, outcast from society. So then it's a recognition that we value being a part of the community, or let's say it's our family, or let's say it's our work, or whatever it is. We value that more than our own individual desire. And
Mhm.
acknowledging that and accepting that does allow us to be more present with the choice that we are making. Like, I'm making this choice, and we can't have both. Like, we can't
Mm.
act on this internal desire and keep this community as it is.
Mhm.
So we're making this choice for the community.
It's making me think
It
that,
allows us to move on.
well, yes, and we could process it, grieve it, and move on. But also, I think everything is about timing and like energy and like all of that. So maybe we have something at age 20 that is a velleity that at age 50, we actually we have done the work. We're in a different place. We're ready to take that risk. Like, there's a question here I have about like what would need to be true for this wish to become a will. And so maybe you just find yourself decades later still having the same longing that has not been acted on, but you are in a different place. Maybe the
Mhm.
people around you are different. Maybe your circumstances, your finances, your whatever it is, you've processed through certain fears. And now the velleity can turn into something else.
Yeah.
So
So,
that's interesting too, because it could be labeled as a velleity and then change. That's possible, I think.
yeah, I mean, I think one example, well, I guess two in my life that have been kind of like, yeah, there have been velleities. One's learning Spanish. I mean, I know quite a bit of Spanish, but I never really have taken the action needed to learn it.
Yeah.
But I have this certainly a desire to do it. That's so much of a velleity. And the other is I've thought of writing a book, but I've never done it. So they're just like latent desires that I haven't acted on.
Mhm.
And I use these as examples because they're pretty benign in a way, but also like, I don't know, feel a bit vulnerable in both of those. Like, writing a book, like it takes a lot of effort and time. And then you're
Mhm.
also really sharing a lot of yourself with others. So it's almost like safer, comfortable just to have them as a little desire rather than taking that action.
Mhm.
It's
Absolutely.
like a little safe harbor to have that. So then what, you know, what is the purpose of that? And is it,
It is a fire, right? It is a little bit of a spark anyway. It's something that brings some kind of like aliveness to us, even if it never turns into a big flame in action. And, there's something about it that is like you're flirting with
Mhm,
the potential of what it would be like to be an author, let's say, right? Like,
mhm,
and sometimes the thing is that the dream life of how you can imagine yourself in the future as being a writer or an author, the fantasy might be better than the reality because it's going to be really hard work and you never know if you're going to sell books and like so like in some ways you could talk yourself into whether this is a conscious part of it or not that like the dream part of it is more satisfying and enjoyable to experience than
Mhm.
what the reality might look like because
Yeah.
you don't really know.
Yeah, it makes me think of, I saw some reels on Instagram and somebody will say like, you may want this life where I travel and have time and I write about my travels and it's like the dream life.
Mm,
But are you willing to leave your job?
mm.
Leave the security and income of your job? Are you willing to sell your house and live transient?
Living out of a
Are you
suitcase.
willing to let your family down, expectations down, right? Are you willing to make these actually take action
Hmm.
to, yeah, work towards your desire? Like it's a big thing and sometimes, yeah, okay, it's a lot of cost,
That's a really good
really
point. Yeah.
switches things up, like,
If you choose one thing and it's a big thing, it means not choosing many other things. And like
yeah.
you said, disappointing other people. And sometimes that idea of that can be too painful to bear that you don't allow your own longings to come to life
Mhm.
because you're too afraid to hurt or inconvenience or in any other way,
Yeah.
disappoint people. Yeah.
Or if you have a desire to run a marathon, are you willing to run every day for 6 months to train for it?
It's a suffering
Are you
in a way.
willing to do it?
Yeah.
You may have a desire for it, but that's not enough to actually take the action.
And so what's interesting for me is what qualifies as something worth suffering for. Because in some ways, I mean, maybe I'm over exaggerating it, but a marathon, it hurts to try. Like, I've done one and I was 25 then. I can't imagine trying to do it now. But that's a good example because it's physical pain. There's a ton of like emotional, mental, other types of suffering. And I guess, how do you know? Maybe when is the biggest question. When you are willing to put in the work and suffer the consequences of living out this dream.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the ultimate question in my mind, is like,
Yeah. Yeah, one thing coming to my mind is my relationship with my parents. We were estranged for maybe 3 or 4 years, pretty strong. 2 years I didn't talk to them, even though they lived just like a couple miles from me. And I had a desire to have a relationship with them again. I guess it wasn't velleity because I took action, but it was for a while.
mhm.
It was a temporary velleity where I wasn't taking action. And I guess I saw the path, like, I gotta go through a really challenging time to reestablish a relationship with them.
Mhm.
It wasn't like I could just flick switch and then it happened. It was like, okay, we gotta have some process, and we ended up, yeah, meeting once a week, just the three of us for about 2 hours for maybe, I don't know, 3 months. So, like, a lot of time, like, probably 25 hours of difficult discussions and sharing, and it wasn't always easy. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, now we have a relationship, which is great. So I don't know what, I guess, like, thinking about in me, I was like letting that desire grow
Yeah.
and recognizing it and like listening to that inner thing. Cause I remember, like, I'd be maybe like in a men's group sharing, and like my life was great in so many ways. And then I had like, so I would think like, what's my sadness in my life? And it was that I didn't have a relationship with my parents. And so, yeah, like recognizing that, it allowed that to become more real. Like, it was there, but then I recognized it was there, and then I took the action, and now it's not there anymore.
It makes me think, just to boil it down to something really simple, and maybe this doesn't get at it really, but it's almost like doing like a cost benefit analysis or a pro and con thing. Like, and the benefits have to, your desire and the benefits of being on the other side of it and doing the work have to be enough to make you want to wade through some of the cons or suffering or struggle or effort that is involved and get into the other side. And I think sometimes we get so hung up on how hard it's going to be, whatever that is, to overcome, that we just say it's not worth it. It's not worth the benefits. And so that might be true. And that might be why velleities are a thing, is because truly it wouldn't be worth that effort. I'd rather put my effort into something else where for me the benefits are going to be stronger, or it does feel more aligned with what I'm meant to be doing.
Hmm.
And so great, then set that aside. But are we really afraid of the hard work? I think it's a little bit of that rumination storytelling that we, or catastrophizing that it's going to be way harder, way more impossible, way more like painful than it might actually be. Or we can't even fathom how the benefits when we're on the other side will feel,
Yeah.
what it will be like. So, anyway, that's an interesting thing to sit with. How can you be as honest with yourself without having, a fortune telling ability, like to try to like evenly look at, okay, is this really something that I'm willing to work through? And it's a little bit of a when, like, you said you sat with it for a while until you kept noticing it coming up again and again. And then finally, I'm curious if you have a recollection of the conditions, the environment, the timing of when you were like, now's the time I'm going to reach out and ask if they want to like meet and sit down and do this thing? Like, was there just a day when you're like, I'm feeling brave enough and I've thought about it enough and I'm ready to do it?
Yes, I'm thinking about it and thinking about your example of and thinking about timing, what you were saying,
Yeah.
is our capacity, our resource, our health, like it all affects things. So
Yeah.
it could be just trying to think of a small example. Oh, maybe an example that's relatable is being in an intimate relationship or a partnership with someone and feeling like you can't live without them. Like so you might think like, or have a feeling this is not where I'm meant to be, the relationship I'm meant to be in.
Mm.
But your capacity at that moment is such that you feel like you can't live without them. You maybe worry about finances.
Yep.
Maybe you worry about meeting another person.
Just making it on your own,
Yeah, can you make it
generally.
on your own? Do you like all the things? Like you have to find a new place to live, maybe. Like, can you do it? Like,
And it just feels so
and
overwhelming.
like
Like,
they're your best friend, and like you don't like so your
yeah.
capacity is so much empowered by the relationship. Whereas if you build your capacity and get stronger in your own body and feel like you're strong in your own self and you develop a network of friends. So then it's like, okay, so you lose this best friend, but you have other best friends that you can talk to and get that. And you maybe go to school or get such that you can then have your own career and work on your own finances. So then you're like, oh yeah, if I need to get a job, I know I can go get a job and do that. Like you have that confidence in knowing that you can do it on your own. So you build your own resources.
Mhm.
Then you're coming at that from a different place. And so then it's no longer as big of a thing. And then you might say, yeah, this relationship is not what I'm needing right now. And I have the resource in me to make this decision. So it's like timing went by, but also you build up your resource so that your internal resource so that you can see the other side as a potential reality.
And then sometimes the external forces force you maybe before you're ready or kind of kick you in the butt, so to speak, ahead because maybe the partner says, I think this isn't working. I think we
Mm-hmm.
should separate. And then you're like, kind of like, ooh, I've been thinking the same thing, but I wasn't ready to like do it. But now your action is making me react to, like, or whatever else, you know, happens. Like sometimes external forces give us the kick we need in a direction. And that's important too,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So there's a whole other word for
Yeah.
for that we need here for things that are latent and gonna happen. And then there's a choice. Do we take the action and kind of make it happen on our own terms, or do we let the universe create the situation where it happens, right?
Yeah. And sometimes they happen in tandem in a way. I've had that experience where I'm like preparing and like it's starting to grow in me and I'm like almost, but I'm having doubts. But then something happens and it just shoves you in that direction,
Mhm.
in a way that it almost makes the inaction more painful or intolerable than the action. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And then maybe then it in some ways I sort of believe in those forces. So I wonder if then it turns into like a dharma. Like this is like because you couldn't internally motivate enough to action, we've created this circumstance in which we're pushing you toward it a little bit,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, so then we're talking about a different term of false velleity, something that's latent but will eventually act on. So how do we determine what's a velleity, something internal desire that will never act
Yeah.
versus one that we will? And I
But
think it comes with just like, yeah, exploring like what emotions we have when we think about it. So is it fear? Is it just a fantasy? Like, can we recognize it as, is it somebody else's desire for us? So maybe it's not even really coming from us. It's
yeah.
a false desire. It's like a desire to please, but it's not really our dharma. Like maybe, so that certainly exists. Maybe it's just our ego
Getting in the way.
getting in the way.
Yeah. I'm thinking too of people go their whole lives sometimes and only on their deathbeds kind of say, I wish I had done whatever this velleity is. And in some ways, I've seen people be motivated in every way I can think of, internally, externally, by timing and circumstance. And they're still digging their heels in, like refusing to take the action. And I think that can be sad to witness, like somebody having the opportunity and the resources and the time, and like as if the universe has tried to set it up for them to just finally do the thing. Like, and maybe I'm imagining this is going on for decades, but they just don't. And yeah, like I said, then it's like on their deathbed, they're like, I wish I had done the thing.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of that inaction creates a certain type of, energy for the family system, even. Like, I guess I wonder how much of this is like learned and societal and based on skill and spirituality. I guess I'm like curious all the factors that are at play for when something is a longing, what happens to it, whether it stays a velleity, whether it really does get unpacked and witnessed consciously and surveyed for this cost benefit and then maybe eventually acted upon or not. Like, I think we have to see modeled people living that out in a way, like discussing their desires for things, their longings, watch somebody take action and maybe even fail at things and keep coming back. And I don't know, it's what we're surrounded by plays into it so much, I think.
Yeah, interesting to think about looking back at our lives and do we have regrets or are we happy with the choices that we made? From a karmic perspective, we always get the life that we're meant to get. So every choice we made, we were meant to make. It was perfect as it was. We're meant to have the experiences. We weren't meant to live a different life than we did because we lived the one we did. That's what was meant to happen. But so then it's so we have all these velleities that we didn't know they were velleities. Like we thought maybe we were supposed to act it, but we weren't. Because we're at the end of our life and we never acted on it. We weren't meant to.
I don't really buy in as much to the karma thing. So I guess I'm saying if I don't, let's just play the hypothetical. If I don't buy into everything's already predetermined and we live the life we're meant to, I think that if you've ever seen that 90s movie, Sliding Doors, I think there's several pivotal points in our life where or Robert Frost's The Road,
Less traveled.
two roads diverged in a wood. It's like there are these pivotal points where you decide to act or not act. You decide to go one way or the other. And I don't know that I believe that it's all predetermined. And so I think sometimes in reflection, we say, why wasn't I braver? Why didn't I put that into action? And so I like to use the deathbed analogy in a lot of my life when I'm struggling with something that's coming up for me that maybe I'm not acting on. I'm like, what would deathbed Sarah say? Would she have wanted me to be braver here and do the thing? Or would she have realized that maybe this is not where I'm meant to put my energy? Or you know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, that act is just where I was thinking to go with this, right? So it's like, so we have these velleities and then we have desires that we will act on. And being able to discriminate which is which.
Yeah.
So doing the deathbed analogy, when we're making a decision, then we kind of like explicitly acknowledge, like, yeah, this is a desire I have, but I'm consciously choosing not to go pursue it because I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's where I'm supposed to go. I'm supposed to go this other direction. And then we kind of like move forward without regret
Mhm.
because we consciously made that choice.
That's what it is, regret. Yeah.
But if we don't discriminate and we let both desires be equally held as if we're supposed to act on both of them,
Mm.
and we have to choose one, but we wish we had chosen the other one or kind of wish we did, and we don't accept in ourselves that we chose not to, like, because it wasn't as conscious, then we create a little bit more suffering because we have, like, let's say we
Mm.
have we all have lots of desires that we're never going to act on. And if we accept the fact that we're never meant to act on them and that we can't act on them and we're consciously choosing not to because we've looked at them and discriminated that they're not our path, then we can
But
let
you're
them live in the
assuming that
past.
you're assuming that work has been done. And I guess what I'm saying with the deathbed analogy is essentially, what would I do if I wasn't afraid?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're just making the assumption that it was a fully realized decision that I made X versus Y. Like, that's not usually the case. And additionally, I just want to say, if you choose X and then months later, years later, decide that's not it, there's no reason why you can't 180 and choose Y.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean,
Yeah.
depending on what it is, but
And I think being afraid is a legitimate reason not to do something too. Like, I think that is real.
but if you imagine that,
And we shouldn't say that, oh, you're just not doing this because you're afraid. That's like, you should have done this. Like, no, the fear is real. Like, right? Or
I'm not dismissing the fear. It's just that if we were the most courageous version of ourselves, and we weren't worried about shame or worried about not being accepted, whatever it is, like, there's so many things I think we would do and so many
Yeah.
ways we would show up
yeah.
that we're not.
So then it's like, are we willing to do that work to lessen our fear and lessen our need to be included and accepted?
Mm.
And like, so it's kind of tangential work, but so then the more we know ourselves, the more self-confident we are, the more we just know who we are, and that's more important than maybe how we're perceived.
Mhm.
Then some of that fear is going to be less because it's like, okay, so what if people make fun of me? Or so what if people see me as a failure because this might fail? Like, that's not
Mhm.
going to affect me as much because I know who I am and I know why I'm here and I know I'm just doing my best and I'm going to try it. And that's what's most important. So if we build ourselves, get more grounded in our being and knowing who we are, then the fear is going to be less. And then we're going to be able to, maybe expand our actions.
Mm.
But that in itself requires a lot of work. And can we judge someone or judge ourselves? Should we be harsh on ourselves for not having not done that work yet? I think that's not so helpful. So I think it is like we can explain away. I mean, maybe it's a slippery slope, but we can explain legitimately why I'm not taking this action, why I'm afraid not to do this.
Mm. And I think it sounds like right now we're talking a lot about taking action with some project or something in our lives. But I think a lot of when I think of deathbed regrets, it's often relational.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, I wish I had spent more time with them when my kids were little. I wish I had told this person I loved them. I wish I had repaired my relationship with this person. Like, I feel like that's most typical.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting to think relationally, what inaction is living inside you, a longing, and is it because, yeah, you're afraid of getting your heart broken one way or the other, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about a little crush that you have on someone, right? It's like maybe you have a desire to get to know somebody better or add them more into your life, but there's fear around what will happen if you put yourself out there in that way, right? What if
Mhm.
they say no? Maybe it's better to live in the fantasy.
Yeah.
Maybe it will require some real changes in your life. Like maybe you need to move, or maybe you need to get a different job, or maybe you need to, change your life around in order
Mhm.
to match their life. Are you willing to do that?
I like this statement about velleity in relationships is often dressed as patience, as not wanting to be a burden, as wanting to wait for the right moment. But underneath, it frequently is the terror of if we name what we actually want, and what if it can't be met?
Hmm.
And what if then we have to grieve it? And so we choose this like liminal comfort over risking the pain, the fear, the rejection. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking of even just little examples. So one thing I've set in kind of an intention this year to make more friends or to deepen my friendships. And I find myself, it's a little bit vulnerable, like some people that I know kind of casually. And then, like, how do I say, like, I'd like to get to know you more and
Mm,
hang out more and just be friends,
mhm,
Because even in that, there's like opportunity for rejection or misunderstandings, or maybe it switches the dynamics.
mhm.
So then it's like the more I dive into thinking about what my desire is and knowing, like, is it just a little aching desire that's never going to be acted upon? Or is it something that I want to act on? Like, the more clarity I can get in that, then that fuels, like, if I know that I want to get more friends, and I know that in order to do that, I need to talk with more people and have more interactions and do more things that people do as friends,
Mhm.
then that gives me fuel to not worry about the challenges that are going to happen or the hardship that's going to be there. I mean, it's just like a little emotional things, but like having clarity and knowing, then it almost just like transcends all the barriers that have gotten in my way when it was just like a latent desire.
Yeah, I love the idea of thinking of conscious relating, which is like a way to approach relationships, right? As being velleity hunters, not in others, but in ourselves. So getting really curious and exploring all the longings that exist in relating with others and naming them, making them matter. So that's interesting. It's working with the velleity that exists within you as a conscious practice. Like, I'm going to pay attention to all the ways in which I have these desires to connect with people.
Hmm.
I think that's cool. Velleity hunter.
Velleity hunter. And one thing that's coming to me is that, well, whenever we try something new, we need to get more skills. So as I try to, yeah, make more friends or become deeper friends with people, I guess I don't have all the skills that I need yet. So I guess I got to count on fumbling and making some mistakes along the way. And that's just kind of part of the process. So then my clarity has to be strong enough to overcome those. And then I'm thinking about, yeah, this idea of velleity of a dream that you never take action on. Like, one of the ways I see a lot of people put off taking action on something is they take pseudo actions
Mm.
In our culture, I see so many people like they need to know more. I just need to read more books, get more degrees. I'm
Yeah.
preparing. I'm taking. They think they're taking action, but they're not really, right?
Right.
So it's like perfectionism. Like I have to get it perfect. I'm just working on getting it perfect, and then I'm gonna show it to the world.
Mhm.
And it's a way to pretend you're taking action, but you're not really doing it.
Mhm. Yeah, and then it's interesting to just get really curious about these velleities too. Like, because if something's maybe certainly not all velleities are meant to be acted on, but asking having a dialogue with it and saying, "What are you?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need from me? Are you asking to be lived or asking first to be felt?
Mm-hmm.
And then what is the feeling?" So just really exploring, 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 exploring.
Yeah. I love this. I'm excited to do a retreat on this. And, because so many of the retreats I see are about manifesting things or, yeah, transforming your life or living your desires. And there's not an acknowledgement of the desires that we have that we won't act on.
Mhm.
And as if we should act on all of them.
Right.
And the reality is we can't, and we're not meant to. So I think having some real acknowledgement that, like putting all our desires out there and almost acknowledging that we have desires that we will never act on allows us to put more out there and be more
Yeah.
vulnerable. It's like one thing I'm thinking that I've had, like I remember in college, I took quite a few land use planning courses and I loved that. And I never like really pursued that, but I think it's a velleity I have of like being a city designer.
Yeah.
And but I've never acted on it. I don't know if I will. I don't think I will, but I kind of have that
Huh.
feeling in me. Like I just find it so like the way we design our towns and cities has such an impact on the community's health, the environmental health, the individual health,
Yeah.
physical, mental, like everything. Like it has such a big impact, but I don't know if I'll ever take action on that. But recognizing that and saying, okay, we're going to have desires that we'll never take action on, it almost opens up space to share the desires that we have that we never share because we're kind of like,
Mm.
we know we're not going to take action on it. So there's some shame around like having a desire, but then recognizing that we're not doing it. Cause,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like, I think being born like that, early 80s is I was looking at the medals I have. Like, it was a time when you got medals and trophies and awards for every single thing you did.
Participation.
I mean, pretty much I won everything, so I got, like, the
Oh,
first
right.
place, but no, but we got participation rewards for everything. Like, everything's like,
Yeah.
everyone's amazing for everything they do, and you can do whatever you want in your life, and, like, think about what
The sky's the
the
limit.
sky's the limit. Think about what you wanna do and go out and do it and live your dream. So then that almost creates, like, this space where if you have a dream,
You're supposed to.
you're supposed to do it, and if
Yeah.
not, there's a little shame in that.
Yeah.
So this idea that we all have many desires that we're never gonna act on is a natural thing.
And I think it's
It
actually
opens up
pretty.
space
Yeah.
to put them all on the table. So let's say, let's get 20 desires on the table, and this is great.
Know that
And
maybe
then
you'll only do 1 or 2 of
and then
them.
the work is
Yeah.
figuring out which ones
Yeah.
are you're actually gonna take action on,
Yeah.
right? And so then we go from, like, having, this scramble of 20 desires and no clue on where to go and just, like, this overwhelm, and then we're living a world of opportunity where we can do just about anything, a lot of
Mhm.
us,
Mhm.
but putting all our desires on the table and like putting them in categories through whatever process you want and saying, okay, these are the ones that are really true desires that I want to take action on. These are the ones that I have a kind of desire longing on, but yeah, probably they're not strong enough to take action on.
Mm.
And then, like, it's a totally different game than thinking like, oh, what are your desires? How do we take action on them?
So I'm excited to do that retreat and call it, I don't know what it's called, but
Desire discrimination.
Desire discernment. That's way better.
What are, if our desires are, if we should act on them? Like, if a desire is really aligned with our values, maybe act on it. If our desire is not aligned with our values, maybe don't act on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also important not to deny that we have that desire, right? Because we don't necessarily need to feel shame around that desire.
Mm-hmm. I love this quote from Rumi. What you seek is seeking you. Thanks for tuning in to That's So Intimate. If this episode sparked something for you, hit subscribe and share it with someone you care about. We're growing this beautiful community, one conversation at a time.
Got a word or topic you want us to explore? Send us an email or find us on Instagram. We love hearing from you. We'll be back next week with more connection, curiosity, and intimate conversation.